The human body contains innate microscopic visionary abilities, meaning there are ways that we can see the microscopic or even the atomic and the nuclear without any instruments. I'm going to talk about two of these ways. The first is entoptic vision, or Phosphenes, which I mentioned briefly in a previous video, and the second method is through the pineal gland. For tens of thousands of years, humans have been drawing symbols that are identical to each other across the globe without needing any contact. Archetypal symbols have not just occurred in Paleolithic man, but also in every age of man. We're going to be reading through some of this paper. Does the nervous system have an intrinsic archaic language, entoptic images, and phosphenes? I certainly encourage you to read through this if you're interested, but we will be going through some of it. Here are the main points. Most of the religious ideas are innate. They already exist in the central nervous system. These archaic symbols and images were mainly seen and experienced during hallucinogenic-induced altered states of consciousness and other forms of trance and hypnosis. Religious archaic symbols are composed of many common geometrical figures that had no communication and connection between cultures, suggesting that the symbols are innate. From shamanism, paganism, to modern monotheism, it's unlikely that much of the information comes outside of the organism, but rather it is mostly the unraveling of the subconscious and the collective sub-unconscious. Phosphenes and entoptic images may be an archaic form of symbolic language generated by the CNS. To reiterate the points, the conclusion is that a neurological innate symbol language could have been effective to pass information to the next generation through unraveling of the collective sub-unconscious since Neolithic ages. The alphabet of this language consisted of probably the geometrical shapes which become overt in the forms of entoptic images during religious rituals, when psychoactive plants were used to recollect ancestral information in some trance states. Phosphenes are described here as luminous, ephemeral signposts marking the landscape of the inner space of the nervous system, also called entoptic phenomena. There are multicolored shapes or patterns seen in the darkness without external visual stimulation, while no light shines on the retina. They can be anything from spirals to exploding stars to waves and zigzags and checkerboards, honeycombs, spider webs, circles, and many more. They can be activated by the mechanical, electrical, or magnetic stimulation of some parts of the visual cortex and/or by the similar simulations of the eyeball and the retina. They can be experienced by hypnosis, reverie, fever, delirium, fatigue, sensory deprivation, sweat lodges, profound concentration, hyperventilation, medicinal herbs, psychoactive drugs, food and water deprivation, electrical and magnetic stimulation of the visual cortex, strobe lights, rhythmic movements, migraine, headaches, meditation, shamanic drumming, trance states, intense emotions, stress, crystal gazing, and other kinds of altered states of consciousness. Entoptic phenomena have even been reported during prolonged or expanded orgasms. Phosphenes do not only originate in the retina, but they can originate in various other parts of the brain. The nervous system is large and complex. The source of entoptic phenomena can be from many different parts. So here are some examples of entoptic forms next to various Paleolithic and cave art. Here's another clearer image of that top part where you can see the entoptic phenomena, the rock arts, Paleolithic art in its various drawings and how similar it is. The idea is that anyone can experience these phenomena. It's innate to the human body, especially for a shaman or a priest or priestess under a psychedelic trance or some other hypnotic altered state of consciousness. These visuals are seen and then recorded and likely given some special significance depending on the culture, whether it's some nature spirit or ancestral connection or a message from the gods. Here are some examples of entoptic and psychedelic images as visualized by fractals. These are examples of what people may experience or have recorded experienced using entoptic phenomena, whether it's hypnotic-induced or psychedelic-induced. Here are just more phosphene patterns. Here are various artists that bear similarity to entoptic phenomena. Here's a comparison of Chladni plates, cymatic images, and phosphenes in flicker light stimulation. It's reminiscent of textile patterns, ceramic patterns, and even sacred mandalas. These are the different stages of consciousness according to David Lewis Williams. These are just some proposed examples of how symbols are kind of translated through the brain. Basically, how a symbol can carry with it so much meaning. Here are more phosphene images and how they can be compounded into these various different symbols found in rock art. There's a lot of interesting correlation between symbols, psychedelic experience, trances, and entoptic phenomena, as well as folk and mythology and storytelling. What's interesting to me that this paper doesn't get into is that many of these cave arts and mythological engravings are also metaphors or symbolic or aligned to astronomical positions. Here's just a quick example of a cave painting with astrological alignment. This is just speculation, but I bet you could make a field of study that combines astrotheology, pharmacology, and ethnomicrobiology. I think there's a lot of potential phenomena and connections that phosphenes may be able to explain. Since phosphenes are basically the central nervous system seeing itself or reflecting itself, various chemicals and psychoactive substances are able to alter those entoptic phenomena. I think it's also worth considering that the gut microbiota, which are in communication with the CNS, may also be able to influence those phenomena and the archaic language within the nervous system. There's also a lot of architectural theories relating to cymatics, such as cathedral windows. A whole separate video could be done on architecture and how it's an expression of the human body, which it certainly was seen as such in ancient cultures. But there may have been a lot of inspiration from entoptic phenomena and other hallucinatory phenomena into the construction and architecture of our temples. But like I said, that's a topic for another time. We're going to move on to the other possible microscopic visionary ability. And maybe this is related and it just hasn't been discovered yet because it's a little bit more fringe than even the entoptic vision. And this is the experience of the third eye or the pineal gland. In the book Occult Chemistry, written in the early 1900s by the Theosophists C.W. Leadbeater and Annie Besant, they claim that the structure of the atoms of the periodic table can be learned through clairvoyant ability of the third eye. This is different in theory than entoptic phenomena because entoptic phenomena is coming from within. This idea is that there is an extrasensory ability to see microscopic particles with the pineal gland or some function of the pineal gland. Here are some sketches they made based off of some of the visions they supposedly had. There are many critics of theosophy and especially of this book as a serious chemical manuscript. Despite the skepticism and criticism, they did end up foreshadowing string theory. Whether it was coincidence or they did happen to see some etheric force is obviously up for debate. In the 1980s, another theosophical publication came out by Stephen Phillips, claiming that even down to the quark can be seen through the third eye clairvoyant abilities. So there's a lot of interesting ideas, and certainly in the sort of mystic level in various religions and cultures is reference to extrasensory abilities and different forms of consciousness where knowledge can be obtained, which in my belief, the spiritual realm is the microscopic realm, which is not to lessen or take away from any culture or religion or even science. But there's certainly a lot of unexplained phenomena, and I think it's worth considering that humans have innate abilities to see some of the most fundamental parts of the world around us. And those forces, entities, symbols, images, perceptory abilities aren't mechanical processes, but very much alive and intelligent, and this has given way to many of the mythologies and the folk tales and the different symbols and archetypes used throughout the world. We've certainly explored Amanita muscaria in many different religious contexts. One of the reasons why Amanita muscaria is such a likely candidate for many religions is because it's not the most hallucinatory or psychedelic mushroom, but it does offer one of the strongest aids for sleep and meditation, which is to access the microscopic.